Starting a modern open-world game requires dedicating anywhere from 50 to 150 hours of your actual life to a single piece of media. It is a massive investment of your free time. When you commit to a game of that size, you have to navigate a strict design conflict. Are you looking for the frictionless convenience of checking off a list? Or are you willing to accept a high-friction environment to achieve deep immersion? Many major studios rely on what players call the Ubisoft formula. They build a massive map, obscure the actual geography with hundreds of glowing icons, and reduce the active exploration to a tedious grocery list of repetitive tasks. Publishers often market these games by bragging about sheer square mileage. But a massive map filled with empty space or repetitive filler actively dilutes the experience. Density and purpose dictate quality, not physical size. To evaluate whether a game is worth your time, you can measure its time-to-awe ratio. This compares the hours you spend performing routine maintenance or traveling against the frequency of moments that actually leave you speechless. Breaking down how developers structure these maps allows us to identify specific design choices that either waste your time or reward your curiosity. This diagram shows a common developer trick called horizontal compression. To keep the map feeling active, developers take vast geographical distances and artificially squeeze them together. This speeds up transit times for casual players who just want to reach the next objective. However, it breaks geographic immersion for observant players when a desert transitions directly into a frozen tundra over a 2-minute walk. To control where you go, designers also rely heavily on steep terrain. A sheer cliff face or a deep canyon acts as a rigid physical wall, forcing you down a specific path while hiding the outer boundaries of the game world. In contrast, games that prioritize scientific realism integrate features organically. Rivers follow the lowest elevation points in valley bottoms, rather than sitting on flat terrain as linear decorative set dressing. Red Dead Redemption 2 prioritizes geographic accuracy, rendering diverse biomes and photorealistic environments that behave according to real-world logic. To ensure you notice that detail, the game strictly enforces slow traversal. You have to clean your weapons, feed yourself, and maintain your horse. These survival mechanics force you to slow down and exist inside the environment. Death Stranding takes this to the extreme. There are very few traditional enemies. Instead, the terrain itself, the jagged rocks, deep rivers, and steep inclines, acts as the primary puzzle you have to solve. This level of geographic friction guarantees a specific trade-off. It alienates players looking for fast-paced action, but it rewards methodical, patient players who want their journey to require active thought. True immersion requires treating the environment as an active, hostile participant. When the world pushes back against your movements, the terrain dictates your strategy. Map marker fatigue sets in when you stop looking at the actual world and start navigating entirely by staring at a minimap or a floating UI compass. A clear indicator of this is the copy-paste point of interest. You clear a bandit camp, loot an abandoned church, or climb a watchtower, and then find the exact same structures duplicated 10 miles down the road. These repetitive locations artificially bloat the playtime. They offer slight boosts to experience points, but they provide zero unique narrative beats or mechanical rewards to justify the time you spent clearing them. Elden Ring is built on unguided discovery. You crest a hill and see a massive glowing tree or an imposing castle on the horizon, and the game trusts you to figure out how to get there. It integrates massive legacy dungeons into the natural landscape, requiring you to navigate via the curvature of a canyon or the position of a statue. It refuses to hold your hand or plot a dotted line for you to follow. Similarly, The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild acts as a systems-driven sandbox. It drops you onto a high plateau and lets you map your own goals based purely on what catches your eye. Instead of programming rigid paths, Breath of the Wild relies on interactable physics. You can ride updrafts of wind over mountains or set dry grass on fire to create a distraction, letting the environment itself dictate your exploration. The trade-off for organic discovery is a high required tolerance for failure. Your weapons will break, you will wander into areas you aren't leveled for, and you will get lost. Because you have to visually read the landscape and survive its mechanics on your own, the discoveries you make feel earned. Developers don't always have to aim for scientific realism. By designing worlds around a stylized, heightened reality, studios can craft environments that feel like a living painting. This requires sacrificing geographic accuracy. Forests might be implausibly dense, and colors will be hypersaturated, all to achieve maximum emotional and cinematic resonance with the player. Ghost of Tsushima centers its entire design on this kind of visually driven escapism. It uses constant, aggressive environmental motion to keep you moving. A dense field of yellow flowers violently swaying in the breeze guides you toward your next objective. By utilizing the wind as a physical mechanic, the developers stripped away traditional, cluttered HUD elements. You navigate by watching the grass bend. Mechanically, the mission structures, clearing camps, following footprints, are highly traditional, but the visual presentation masks that repetition. A focused, intentional aesthetic can overcome mechanical friction. If you want a purely cinematic escape, a heightened art style is more valuable than realistic terrain. When evaluating an open-world game, purposeful design trumps sheer square mileage. A dense, reactive world respects your time far more than a massive empty one. Before you buy, look for the warning signs: a user interface overloaded with map markers, and gameplay loops built on copy-paste fort clearing. This chart maps your ideal game, balancing friction against convenience and narrative against sandbox freedom. Immersion seekers wanting a slow, guided pace fit Red Dead 2 and Death Stranding. Explorers preferring unguided mechanics match Elden Ring and Breath of the Wild, and time-poor escapists wanting a visual journey prefer Ghost of Tsushima. The concept of the best open-world game is subjective. The right choice simply comes down to finding the title that aligns with your specific tolerance for friction and your own personal desire for discovery.